Welcome to CityTalk, the program on which we interview city employees to find out what do these people do all day. The guy next to me is a very busy man, and he does a lot of work all day. And his name is Chapman, and he's the director of Parks and Rec. Ross, welcome to the program.
Thanks, John. Glad to be here.
So oddly enough, even though you're the director of Parks and Recreation, your focus is more on recreational facilities than it is the actual parks. Like you don't mow the lawn in the parks.
That's correct. Yeah, it's one of these things where maybe at some point we rebrand the department. I'm not sure how we go about doing that. City Parks, Parks and Recreation has very little to do with oversight in parks. So if there's a program event there's some people that are activating a space, we may have a tie into that. But largely the maintenance and the oversight of the parks falls under the Department of Public Works.
But you are in charge of all the rec centers in the city.
That's correct. So within my area of purview is currently 10 community recreation centers, 13 healthy active living senior centers. We have 18 outdoor swimming pools, 1 indoor, very unique swimming pool, the Oliver Bath House, 7 soon to be 8 spray parks. So we're quite busy. Currently, I don't know, we might have around 175, 180 staff people. During the summer months, we go up to about 400 with all of our seasonal hires.
I know you're intimately familiar with the Healthy Active Living Centers, and I actually am somewhat familiar because I toured all 13 of them when I started working for the city, but I still feel like sometimes it's a well-kept secret. Like there's a lot of seniors who've never heard of them.
That's exactly the case, and we're working on how to kind of better communicate what it is that we do there. I mean, seniors 60 and over can come in for more than just a free lunch. So we work closely with the Area Agency on Aging, which is through the Allegheny County Department of Human Services, and they help us, they provide funding for us to manage our healthy active living centers. There's some federal funds that help out too, but what we don't or haven't done a great job at is communicating, actually marketing to seniors, younger seniors. I'm not too far away from that grouping, as to how to get them into the center. What do we actually offer? It's more than bingo and a free lunch. It's more than just socialization. So there's a lot that goes on whereby we try to motivate folks to maintain a healthy, active lifestyle, because that's what it's about.
So that includes yoga and other forms of exercise.
Yoga, swimming, walking through parks. We're partnering with Venture Outdoors and some other agencies. AARP is interested and has done some stuff with us. So we're trying to expand our network and our partnership to bring in kind of more of these collaborative partnerships so we can better engage older residents.
And I've talked to so many seniors, and they say they end up being part of a family, that they're not just making acquaintances or friends for 5 minutes, that they really end up knowing these people well, and they depend on one another, they care about one another.
That's exactly the case. Yeah, and that's what this is about for us. It's just about how do we give value and bring something to city and area residents that they feel is something that benefits them. So that's our core mission, is how do we create these opportunities to provide value to people's lives.
So where are you from originally?
I grew up in Belsuver. I'm from the city of Pittsburgh. Lived here my whole life, with the exception of going to college. Belsuver over in the South Hills. I went to a real small Catholic school, the high school, Hilltop Catholic. I think it closed, I won't tell you when, but it was so small it closed right after I graduated. So born and bred Pittsburgher, have been here for quite a long time. Currently live in the east end of the city of Pittsburgh.
I don't hear a trace of a Yinzer accent.
How about that, John? I work on it.
Seriously?
No, I don't know.
Did you have one years ago?
Never had one.
Like a My Fair Lady teacher who beat it out of you?
Maybe. It was one of the, I won't say who exactly, but yeah, it happened in Catholic school. That's what it is.
Oh, all right. Good enough. That's enough. And so how did you end up getting this gig?
So it's March now. I think I came to the city almost 9 years ago. I think it'll be 9 years in July. For the first 7.5 years I spent in the Pittsburgh Partnership, which is a kind of a trust-funded arena within the Department of Human Resources, Personnel Civil Service Commission, and it deals with workforce development, employment and training, but not for city employees, for city residents. The EARN program, which touches people that are on public assistance, the Summer Youth Employment Program, the Learn and Earn program, those are programs that I managed in my previous life. About a year and a half ago, I was asked if I wanted to come into the Parks and Rec department to help out administratively, come up with some new program ideas and just kind of move the needle in a different direction a little bit. And so it's been September of 2017 or thereabouts is when I started in the park, so about a year and a half now.
And what do you find most challenging?
The myriad...
Just keeping up.
Just keeping up, yeah. I mean, you know how that goes, John, but when you have 180 people that are on your roster, but only 5 or 7 of them are internal to the city-county building where I work from, and everybody else is out in the field in one of their community senior rec centers, or it's hard to manage and feel like I'm adequately supporting the staff. And that's what I'm here to do is, in a way, I work for them. I mean, that's really how I see it, is because I'm here to help facilitate what they're doing. They're the face of the public. I mean, they're the ones that are interacting with the people every day, not me. I'm behind a desk and monitors all day, or not all day, every day. I'd like to get out, and I do get out sometimes, not as much as I want. But it's my job to help them do their job better. But it is a challenge. But I think what brings me into work is that I work with a great group of people. I really do. It's a busy day. Of course, there are challenges. There's a great many of things that I'd like to do, that the administration wants us to do, that the residents expect that we do, and it's how do we deliver on those expectations with our given resources. So some days are rough.
Do you feel like you've accomplished some of these challenges?
Every day. Okay. I really do. I think every day we move the needle a little bit. Every day there's an impact felt by someone. So every day the team collectively is working really hard to do just that. I mean, there are a lot of long-term staff members in the City Parks Department that predate me by years and years, decades even. And they're there because they love it. I mean, they're there because they really value what they do and the impact they have on area residents.
So is there one particular big goal that you're focusing on most, or is it just a myriad?
Well, there's a lot of things. I mean, one thing that we're trying to do is we're trying to address the digital divide. You might hear people talk about that, but that's just literacy as it relates to technology and how we put that in the hands of kids, families, seniors. So there's a couple new positions that have been created that the mayor's kind of put into the Parks and Rec budget. So we're going to be onboarding some new hires to help us to kind of increase our deliverables as it relates to learning opportunities, educational kind of curriculum-based things. Not too heavy, not too technical, but so that we can offer more, and we currently do in our after-school programs or summer camps, more in the way to connect people with learning opportunities that can help them help themselves. You know, they can open up a few doors. I think, as we all know, equity isn't just something that you can expect exists across the whole of any entity, agency, city, state, et cetera, et cetera. So it takes effort. It takes effort to try to close some of those gaps. So I think one of the biggest initiatives that we have moving forward is how we can better address some of that as relates to what do our centers feel like when you walk into them? What services can we provide to seniors or youth and families that go beyond perhaps the weight room or the access to the swimming pool or something like that? So those are big challenges, but I think as we move forward, we're making some good headway, and as we kind of bring on some people that have some subject matter expertise in those areas, we'll make some significant ground.
Ross Chapman, you seem like you know what you're doing.
Just sometimes. Today's a good day. You got me on a good day, John.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks very much.
We'll be back with more City Talk in a moment. Stay with us.
145 over 92.
180 over 111.
I had a heart attack, a cardiac arrest, and then a stroke.
This is what high blood pressure looks like. You might not feel its symptoms, but the results from a heart attack or stroke are far from invisible or silent. Get back on your plan or talk with your doctor to create an exercise, diet, and medication plan that works for you. Go to loweryourhbp.org.
If I would have followed a treatment plan, I would not be in this situation.
Welcome back to City Talk. Well, when there is a crime scene in the middle of the night and reporters show up and somebody needs to talk to them, the person who does that is the Public Information Officer for the Department of Public Safety, which includes the police and the fire department and several other departments. And say hello to Chris Togneri, who we welcome on City Talk. He is the Public Information Officer. Chris, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Where are you from originally?
I was born and raised in Oakland, California.
And you were a journalist, I know, for many years, for part of the time in California, covering the police?
Correct. I got my journalism start in Slovakia. Actually, I lived there for 5 years. Then I worked in California for about 3 years, and I've been in Pittsburgh since '07.
How'd you get to Slovakia?
Well, I played baseball in college, and I actually went to Slovakia to help coach baseball for 6 months.
And then you ended up being a journalist.
I stayed for 5 years, yeah.
How about that? All right, and then you also worked in Pittsburgh as a journalist.
I did. I came here in April of 2007 to work for what was then the Pittsburgh Tribune Review.
And you were telling me this before we started. You were interviewing the mayor as a journalist, and afterwards the mayor said, hey, I know you used to cover the cops in California. We have a public information officer job opening. Maybe you might want to consider applying for it.
True. I had been a journalist for 20 years. I did not expect to ever be anything but a journalist. But then during that conversation after an interview with the mayor, I thought, this could be interesting. I'll at least apply and see where it brings me.
So, but it gave you pause because once you're a journalist, it's kind of in your blood and you don't know if you want to go to the other side. You're used to covering government, not speaking on behalf of it.
Definitely. Like I said, 20 years as a journalist, I never thought I would be anything else. And then, once I went through the interview process and I liked everyone that I was speaking to, including the police chief, the public safety director, Shatara Murphy in community outreach, she was part of the process. I got a really good feeling, but even after I got the job offer, I needed a week to sort of try it on and get an idea of whether or not I would be okay not being a journalist.
What kind of misgivings were you having?
Being a journalist is an identity, and that was who I was. I was a journalist. And now to go to the other side, it was, troubling is not the word, it was concerning. I wanted to be sure that I was committed to making this step. And after a week of thinking about it and talking it over with my wife and some of my former colleagues at the Trib, I decided that it was something I wanted to give a shot.
And how are you liking it so far?
I love it, actually. I love seeing how investigations develop. I love learning all the things that I was trying to find out as a journalist. Now I'm behind the scenes and I'm watching it happen, and it's really fascinating. And it also has really shown me the amount of amazing work that people in public safety do on a daily basis that never gets covered. And
give me a couple examples of that, if you don't mind.
Every morning at 8:30, I'm on a conference call with all the commanders in the police department. It's basically just a wrap-up of what happened during the previous 24 hours. And it's just on a regular basis, you hear of officers stopping someone from jumping off of a bridge, or officers rushing into firefighters, EMS officers rushing into buildings to save people. There's life-saving efforts going on every day. There was 1 week out in the east end of the city where officers saved and revived a baby twice, a different baby, but twice in 1 week, where they were called to a scene and they found a baby that was unresponsive and not breathing and resuscitated it. So,
and I'm sure you're amazed that all of this doesn't make the paper or the TV or the radio. And yet all these incredibly heroic things are being done.
And I want to be clear, I'm not blaming media.
No, I understand.
It's public safety's fault as well, because there's a mindset of, I'm just doing my job. I don't want to be recognized for these things, which is admirable. But it's my job to try to convince people, hey,
you saved a baby. That could be newsworthy. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Absolutely. So do you remember the first time you were called out at night and suddenly you had to speak to reporters for some crime?
I do. It was a 3-alarm church fire in the Hill District. And it was in the middle of the night. I think I got to the scene around 3 a.m. And, my philosophy has always been that when I get to an incident, I didn't take this job so that I can be on camera, so I can be on the news. I want the members of public safety to be on camera. I want the public to hear from the fire chief and the EMS chief and the police chief. And this was a perfect illustration of why. Because I got there and it was still a very active fire and reporters had gathered. So I went down and I did go on camera and I briefed them. But one of the questions was, what are the challenges of fighting this particular fire? I
You're not a firefighter, so you wouldn't necessarily know.
I had no idea. 2 hours later, though, when one of the battalion chiefs was able to come down, they asked that same question, and he talked about how the nave had collapsed, which actually was a good thing because it let them fight the fire from on top, and he had this intelligent response, which I could not provide. And I said, there's proof that the people of Pittsburgh don't want to hear from me. They want me to get the supervisors to come on and talk to the people of Pittsburgh.
So you'll talk if necessary, but you're going to try to get somebody who's actually has done the job
Correct.
Before you.
Correct.
How often are you successful in that? Or are they very bashful and you find you have to talk to reporters in the final analysis? Or it just varies?
It varies. It depends on the person. There are some, police has a night watch commander, Commander Mike Pillock, who is he's friendly. He's a good representation of the city for sure. And he has no problem with when he sees reporters, he just goes over and tells them what happened. Then there's just some people who do not want to be on camera at all. And
yes, I've run into quite a few of those since I got this job.
Right.
But I understand a lot of people in public safety, a lot of police officers and firefighters who'd rather not.
Correct.
Who shun the limelight.
Exactly.
Because as you say, they think they're just doing their jobs. So does this happen frequently that you're summoned somewhere at all hours of the night?
It can. I just came off of a 3-day period where I was on call where I didn't have to go to a single scene. A couple weeks ago, there was one night where I was on 4 different scenes. There was a SWAT situation, there was a possibly fatal car crash, there was a home invasion and shooting, and then later on in the night, there was someone who shot at officers. That was all one night. This is
all just over a few hours' time?
About 10 hours period.
Wow.
And I was on scene at all 4 of them.
That just must have been crazy.
I didn't sleep much that night.
How about that? So would you recommend this as something to try to do for young people who want to get into jobs which involve being a spokesperson for government, or is this not for the faint of heart?
I would recommend being a journalist first.
Okay.
Being a journalist gives you a skill set that very few other people have. By being a journalist, you need to work in the industry to understand the industry, and I spent 20 years doing it. So when I was able to step over here, I know what reporters want and why they want it. When I train supervisors, people who will be speaking to the media, I tell them things like, TV reporters, for example, are going to ask you the same question in many different ways. They're not trying to trick you. They work on sound bites, so they're trying to get you to say the same thing in different ways so that they can pick the best one. This isn't combative. I also tell...
That's an interesting insight. It's all very true, but I just mean, yeah, they might think, why are you asking me the same question over and over again? Are you trying to trick me? And
exactly.
As you say, they're just trying to get you to say it in the most coherent, nutshell form possible. Boom, they have their soundbite.
Right. I also tell, during that training, there's a whole section where I explain how police and journalists are very, very similar. And people look at me like, no, that can't be true. And I said, it is true. No one does it for the money. So they're overworked and underpaid. There is a segment of the population that dislikes both just because of what they do for a living. When people need help, they reach out to journalists and officers. People do it because it's exciting and because they want to change the world. There are a lot of similarities, which is...
I didn't believe it when you said the premise moments ago, and now you've totally sold me. You're absolutely right. Wow.
They're very similar.
So you're enjoying your job?
I am, very much.
And are you even surprised about that? Since you're on call and you can be called in at all hours of the night, and it's not just 9 to 5, honey, I'm home.
There are times where I have a 5-year-old son, and there have been times where I've been away. When we had the major train derailment in the Strip District, I don't think I saw my son for 3 or 4 days in a row.
Wow.
And of course, when we have tragedies in the city, the only time he's going to see me is on CNN. Mm-hmm. So that's difficult, but I just try to be available every moment that I have. I try to be there for him so that he's not missing me too much.
Well, you've got an assistant public information officer, and you're hiring a second assistant public information officer to try to, I don't want to use the phrase spread the misery, but allocate the work so that nobody gets burned out, and all 3 of you can split the duty. So hopefully that will reduce the workload, or at least make it a little less intense.
That would be nice. That's the goal. This job can be very intense, and it can be intense for long spurts. I'm trying to make it so that people have a life outside of this place, so that you can go home and spend time, turn your phone off.
Imagine that.
Yeah, I mean, the only time I've been here almost a year now, the only time I've ever been able to turn off my work phone is when I'm on an airplane.
And is there a delicate balance between you wanting to be transparent and give the reporters what they want because you remember what it's like to be a reporter, but maybe not giving them all the facts right away if it might compromise the investigation, in the opinion of some of the folks investigating?
Exactly, and I find that the way to do that is to explain when we can't provide information. One thing as a reporter that always frustrated me was when there would be some sort of an incident and then the police would say, taken to a local hospital. And I would say, which hospital? They said, we're not releasing that. And it would just frustrate me because I thought, well, they're just withholding information. So when I became PIO, I wanted to change that policy. I said, we're going to start telling people which hospitals. And the major crimes commanders said to me, that's a bad idea, and here's why. If you have a victim of a violent crime, why are you going to tell people who just tried to kill this person where they are? I said, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So for victims of violent crimes, we will not say what hospital it is, but that's something that I now communicate to reporters and say, can't say it, and this is why. I've always found as a journalist that if information cannot be released and they explain why, then I get it. But it's just the no comment mentality that I'm trying to get away from.
You're much too conscientious and thoughtful for a government worker. You should work on that.
Oh,
Chris
I'll
Togneri,
do my best.
Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thanks.
And we'll be back with more City Talk in a moment. Stay with us.
There are 16 million children struggling with hunger in America. That's 1 in 5 daughters, sons, neighbors, and classmates who don't know where their next meal is coming from. Yet billions of pounds of good food go to waste every year. It's time we do something about it. Feeding America is a nationwide network of food banks that helps provide meals to millions of kids and families in need. Visit feedingamerica.org to help them feed even more. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America.
Welcome back to this edition of City Talk. Earlier in this edition, we met Ross Chapman, who is the Director of Parks and Recreation for the City of Pittsburgh, and he's a very busy man, and he's got a lot of stuff on his plate. But you know that the people in the trenches are the ones that do the real work. This is Ross Chapman's administrative aide, also obviously for the Department of Parks and Rec, Susan Lucas. Susan, welcome to City Talk.
Thanks, John. Nice to be here.
So you and I actually did orientation as new city employees a little over a year ago on the same day.
Same day, and we're still here.
What did you think you were getting into? And what job had you applied for?
I had applied for the administrative aide position. It was something that I had heard about, and I'm like, well, let's give it a shot. And here I am. It worked out. I absolutely love my job, but it's been a little different than what I anticipated.
So what did you think it was going to be, and what did it turn out to be?
Well, I thought it was going to be giving people information about what's going on in parks, but City Parks is far more than that. We actually handle all the programming, all the activities at rec and senior centers, so I get to work with people throughout the city of all ages.
And there are like boatloads of programs, right? Can you give us some examples?
Boatloads of programs. There's 5 rec centers with after-school programming with a STREAM curriculum, science, technology, reading, engineering, arts, and math.
All right, so that was an acronym. I didn't know if you were streaming live over the internet, but I get it now.
That's an acronym.
Yeah.
Plus our city sports programs. We have futsal. That championship just ended. High school basketball's getting ready to start their league.
So you have to make sure they have everything they need, somebody to referee, just everything surrounding organized sports.
Organized sports throughout the city. We handle the Mayor's Cup for Little League, baseball and softball as well. And then
Does it all fall on you?
No, it doesn't all fall on me, but we work together very cohesively as a team. We've got a great team in our parks department, and we branch out over 6 arms. We have tennis, the Mellon Tennis Bubble, underneath our programming. We have the after-school and summer foods program. We have the rec centers, the senior centers, and community enrichment program.
And how long did it take you to memorize all of that?
Oh gosh, I'm still working on all the memorization, but good 3 months, and now I'm ready to answer anyone's question.
Why is the sky blue?
That's the way God made it.
All right, very good. See, you're all ready to answer everybody's question. So it's a lot more work than you thought it would be, even though I'm not implying you're not a hard worker, but it's a much more varied job than you thought. Many more tentacles out there. And
Lots
Parks
of
and Rec land.
nuances with Parks and Rec, and each one is a different challenge, but they've all been fun and rewarding so far.
Where are you from originally?
Eastern Pennsylvania and Cape May, New Jersey.
Okay. And what's a Jersey girl doing in Pittsburgh? How'd you end up here?
I went to the University of Pittsburgh. Hail to Pitt, all of my Pitt fans
What
out there.
What did you major in?
I majored in communications and marketing.
And what did you think you were going to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be a TV anchor person.
Did you?
I did.
What happened? Because you look like you look like you could do that.
What happened?
I'm not saying there's anything wrong with not being it.
Yeah. No, just to change. Marketing I was better suited towards
Okay.
the marketing more so than the communications piece of things. So wound up at the blood bank for quite a few years.
And you were a spokesperson for the blood bank.
I was.
And
for
you were trying to talk
Central
people
Blood
into
Bank.
giving blood.
Talk people into giving blood. Went to the community for support when we were low on blood donations.
Was that a difficult job, or are people willing? Or are they
That
willing
was
and ready to give?
It was a difficult job for the most part. People are willing and ready to give. It's just a matter of reminding them and making sure they can find the time to come in and do it, or at an employee blood drive that they're given the opportunity to donate.
So is this your first foray into government work then?
It is. It is.
How do you find your fellow government workers? Do they fit the stereotype of the sitting around doing nothing, or are they actually hardworking individuals?
We work with a lot of people who are hardworking individuals, and I all think we have the same goal in mind, and that is to help our fellow Pittsburghers.
Is that a line you've memorized also, or is
No,
that actual sincerity there?
That comes from the heart.
So would you recommend this sort of this line of work to aspiring students or anybody in life who wants to work in the government?
Absolutely. I have learned far more than just a city resident of 30 years. I've learned so much already.
Yeah, who knew all this stuff was going on in the city?
I had no idea, and it's been great. I've been able to share it with friends, been able to share it with students that I used to coach,
What
and
should
my
people
daughter.
know that they don't know that you've learned? Or
People
give you an
should know that
example?
the city's here as a resource for them, and don't get upset about that resource. Use it to maximize the things that you can do within the city to live to the fullest.
Don't hesitate to pick up the phone or email somebody, get
Call,
information.
email, ask. The city's full of information. And I think we do a pretty good job in city parks of sharing that information. But just like anywhere, we all have room to grow and get better at it. So that's one of the things that I've taken on, trying to make sure we're informing as many people as possible of all the wonderful opportunities that we have.
Is there anything else you'd like to say before we wrap this interview?
I don't think so. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much for doing it. I'd like to thank you. I'd like to thank Jersey Sue both individually.
She says you're welcome also.
Awesome. This is the first split personality interview
Oh,
I've done
geez.
since I've
It's
been
the first one I've done,
this job,
too.
so that's awesome. Thank you for being honest about your schizophrenia.
No problem.
That's City Talk. Thanks for watching. I'm John McIntire. We'll see you next time.